dragged barefoot through the jungle, starving, tortured, and left to die. Yet he survived. Barely. In this video, we'll find out just how close a man can come to crossing the razor-thin line that separates life and death. And it all happened deep in the jungles of Vietnam during the Vietnam War. This is the true story of Dieter Dengler. Important disclaimer, the man has years worth of pain and his story is honestly deeply traumatic. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Dieter Dengler was born in a small village in Germany and spent his childhood in the chaos of World War II. The years of his youth were filled with extreme poverty. Tragically, the Allies bombed the small poor village when Dieter was just a small child, but this was no ordinary bombing run. As the planes attacked, little Dieter was watching from the second-story window of his childhood home. One of the planes flew right past Dieter's window, missing the house by mere feet. They locked eyes for a brief millisecond. A complete, out-of-body experience. And that's when he realized he wanted to become a pilot. In the years following this, the situation was so bad he and his family would genuinely have to eat wallpaper off of bombed-out buildings because there was absolutely no food. The streets he walked were covered in rubble and death. At age 14, little Dieter managed to land an apprenticeship as a clockmaker building church clocks. He worked from 7 in the morning to late into the night, and he was paid only 50 cents per month. In little Dieter's words, it was truly horrible, but he claims that if it weren't for the hardship of his childhood, he wouldn't have been strong enough to survive the jungle. During the brutal years of surviving in war-torn Germany, the dream of becoming a pilot had survived. So at age 18, he moved to America with nothing but 30 cents in his pocket. He joined the US Navy, earned his wings, and deployed into the chaos of the Vietnam War. This brings us to 1966. Dieter was flying a bombing mission. He flew 2 hours to reach his target, taking fire much of the way there, and as he approached, his plane was unfortunately struck down. He crash-landed deep into enemy territory, completely alone, desperately looking for escape. Tragically, 2 days later, he was captured by a brutal guerrilla group with no rules and no mercy. They tied his hands behind his back and forced him to walk through the jungle to a small outpost. They hung him upside down, beat him senseless, and, yes, this is real, shoved ants into his mouth and tied an ant's nest to his face until he lost consciousness. On several occasions, they hung him upside down inside a well shaft overnight, expecting him to die a slow death of drowning. They even put a tourniquet on his arm and twisted until the arm was rendered completely unusable. After what felt like an eternity, the guerrilla group marched him through the forest for 3 more weeks to turn him in to the Viet Cong. Once he reached the new POW camp, he was greeted by 5 other POWs and was chained together with them. By this point, he was severely malnourished and survived on just a handful of rice per day, as well as any rats he and the other prisoners could find. During much of this time, all 6 of them were handcuffed together, so for a long time, they relied on each other to survive. They even became friends. Dying friends, but friends nonetheless. Eventually, the 6 prisoners overheard the guards saying that they were just going to go ahead and execute the prisoners, so they were left with 2 choices: escape or die. Fortunately for them, they had the perfect plan. The plan was to lockpick the handcuffs and run out the front door while the guards were sitting in the other hut having a meal. From there, they would escape by raft into Thailand and free past enemy lines. However, when the time came, only 2 of the 6 made it into the jungle: Dieter and a man named Dwayne Martin. The rest were killed at camp. The two managed to steal a couple of guns before fleeing into the jungle. They had no shoes, so they had to run barefoot. However, luckily, they planned their escape during a heavy rain, so it was really hard for the Viet Cong to track them. They walked for miles, and according to Dieter, their feet were bloody in the first 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes in, and they had weeks worth of travel left. They built a raft for the river, but it got destroyed just an hour and a half into their journey. And the jungle was no haven. It was just another prison. Dengler and Martin drank putrid, muddy water, ate frogs, and pulled hundreds of leeches off of their bodies every single day. But they were alive and on their way to freedom, and during this time the two grew extremely close and often talked about what they would do when they would finally get free. Tragically, for Martin, however, the dream would be cut short. They stumbled onto a group of villagers, and Martin was beheaded, and Dieter was forced to watch the entire thing. Now he was alone. It was that way for 23 more days, starving, dying, and dreaming of food and family. He hallucinated feasts, slept in trees, and cried out, but no one was there. By this point, his feet were infected and couldn't walk without extreme pain. Things seemed bleak. Things seemed hopeless. But on the 23rd day, he saw it. A literal miracle flew overhead. They circled back and sent a chopper. When Dieter was rescued, he only weighed 98 pounds. Bones, infections, jungle rot, and yet literally, this man's entire life was painful, but he managed to find a way to chase a dream and make his way to freedom. He's truly an inspiration. He was honored by the Navy, went on to tell his story, and shockingly survived 4 more plane crashes as a civilian test pilot. Death straight up did not want him. Even after all that, Dieter Dengler went on to be a bright, hope-filled, and smiley man. He even made a movie about his life, and it's an incredible piece of film that inspired me to make this video. Please do yourself a favor and check it out. Link is in the description. Thank you for watching.